Welcome everybody! Do you remember the last time Zed got locked in pro play?
I'm like, even though I only have a mat on the floor, I think he's in the bed. Oh, Faker maybe in trouble here. Deathmark tries to clean it up for Ryu. Oh, look at the cleanse, look at the moves! Faker, what was that?
So the visits into the jungle not as fruitful.
And there's the Deathmark coming in.
And will it be enough? The pop and the ignites!
But that one underwater.
Finishes Trinity Force. Dade's got
Oh, shadow used.
Brutalizer. It's all about finding fights.
Deathmark going down, but is he going to be enough? Dade is going to be. Oh! Becky, oh, the ignite!
Well, he's absolutely back because Zeka just locked him in versus CFO Honkyu's Talia in their official match. And there's a very good reason why he's done it. I think in general, Zed's already been a little bit sleeper for the past while. You also see that Chovy actually picked him up a lot in his solo queue, has been spamming it. And after the last set of buffs in the current patch that we're playing on, Zed has actually gotten to a very decent point. So why did Zeka decide to lock him in this draft? There's a few things that we're going to be breaking down. Not only his gameplay, also on why this is a decent Zed game and what his thought process is, given the fact that he's playing this champion. Zeka's known for his prowess on melee champions and his ability to execute on it as well. So generally, we're going to start off with the draft and the setup of Zed. What we're going to be seeing is that the enemy team has very linear CC setup and very linear squishy champs. So the Kindred, of course, it's really hard for a Kindred to stick onto Zed. Zed's mobility denies what Kindred wants to be doing very well. Similar to Talia. Zed is an OG counter to Talia because of the fact that Talia's E does not work versus Zed. And Talia is one of the lowest base HP and lowest base armor as mid laners in the game. So the champ like Talia is just incredibly vulnerable to a champion like Zed in lane. Hence why Zed's actually a very good pick in this game. Corki, very similar. Doesn't really do well versus Zed. In the sense that he's got no clear ways of denying him, CCing him. That's a Corki. But very similar to Leona. Right? Leona does have point and click CC, but it's not really in such a way that Zed cannot avoid it with his R or with his W. Very similar to Gragas. This is a very decent Zed game because of how mobile he is and how hard it is for him to get CC'd. We're also going to be opting in for looking at his setup. Why does he run this particular setup? He's running Conqueror with Presence of Mind, Haste, and Last Stand with more Haste and Nimbus Cloak. And this is a very interesting setup. This is a setup that a lot of really high elo Korean Zeds run. I think On Zed is probably the best Conqueror Zed player there is at the moment. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. But I've seen a lot of his clips, and there's a very specific interaction in that they auto-attack a lot in lane. They try to get a lot of heavy trades going, and that allows them to then get an Ignite on top of their face with the Nimbus Cloak movement speed, chasing the enemies down, and getting really favorable trades in the early game. Zed is a champion that is forced to trade heavily in the early game because that's the only thing that he has. He's got no wave control. He's purely a trade-oriented champion. So he needs to trade with the enemies, put them in kill range, and that way he gets control of the lane. This setup is also very hard scaling. So even though that, for example, he may not have the best early lane, he will still do great in the mid to late game because of his setup giving him so much haste and also so much damage. And Zed in general has already been a really good scaler because of the fact that his AD ratios are kind of high actually. So we're going to be breaking down his game right here, and we're going to be trying to figure out why he made the decisions that he did. And we're going to be laning up against Talia. So Zed's opted in for Doran's Shield and a Potion. I think that's fine. That's very respectful towards the enemy laner. If you're less respectful, you can opt in for Longsport Refill as well. But again, as good laners, yeah, you cannot really get away with that. And one thing that he does really well already is he's hiding behind the minions incredibly well, baiting out Talia's abilities. Talia wants to get the push, and Zed is completely fine with getting a little bit pushed in. In this case, he gets a little bit too close towards the minions and gets hit by the entire Talia combo. And what Zed does really well is that he is actually actively trading back upon the Talia. And the main reason why he does that is that way he can start forcing HP trades. The lower the Talia is, eventually she's going to be dropping under kill threat. So he's really happy taking these even health trades onto the Talia right here because of the fact that he's going to get more value from it. He's got D-shield, so he can then eventually sustain everything back up. And the lower that the Taliyah is, the more kill threat she's under, and that puts us in a position where we eventually can get control of the lane back. If we don't trade heavy like this, with this setup, we're going to be in a position where we're just going to get pushed in all the time and drop creeps. And you see exactly what it does right here. He puts the W behind the Taliyah with the Conqueror, trades a lot of out attacks with the Ignite, gets the movement speed, and gets these constant out attacks rocking up into burning the Taliyah flash right here. And this Hong Q guy has not watched any on Zed, because if he would have watched on Zed, he would have known exactly what he was doing. And what's happening right here is that there's a little bit of a reset battle going on, right? Both of these guys are like Zed in this case running Ignite. So if you're running Ignite, you got to be very, very careful with your resets. If you make one mistake in the resets, you can get in a lot of trouble because you don't have your TP to get you out of a bad state. So he's resetting and he's waiting, like he's trying to scan for information, and Taliyah just shows and faked her reset, which is very smart for Taliyah, because Taliyah can easily push out this extra wave into a reset and get a better base, better items comparatively to Zed. So Zed recognizes this really well, that Taliyah wanted to potentially fake her base, and he now actually can decide to extend the lane, which is really good for Zeka in this case, because of the fact that he has a favorable health position. So he tried to throw out this W right there to also scout for a potential fake reset again from the Taliyah, because the longer that this lane goes, the better it is right now for Zed, mainly because of the fact that he's in a position of resource advantages, and it's very hard for Taliyah to get back. And the main reason why Zed's one of these AD assassins that actually can be picked in pro play is because he kind of approaches the game like a mage. He can farm from a distance with his Q. He is very safe when it comes to his W. And yes, it's a champ that still doesn't have the most amount of wave control, but if you pair it up with a quite aggressive jungler, it's definitely a champ that is occasionally in the right situation a very, very problematic one to deal with. So we see a little bit of a topside skirmish going on right here. Zed gets contested by the Taliyah and gets massively slowed, and therefore he's a little bit late to the skirmish, but he gets a beautiful combo on the Kindred whenever she has no dash, no flash. Very important that you keep that in mind, guys. You can only combo like that and fully commit if the enemies have no dash and no flash. Taliyah has phase rush, and she kind of space glides onto the Zed right here into a nice little kite, which then trades a 1-for-1. And now we just nicely get back to lane, catching the wave, and we're in a pretty even position here in lane. So Zed's really happy with this position. If you can get yourself a first pickaxe base, it's a very powerful base for Zed, because of the fact that pickaxe is going to massively increase our damage output on the trading. Pickaxe plus refill means that we're going to be playing the War of Attrition, we're going to be playing the trading bundle in mid right now, and it's very important that you're going to be taking these trades and looking for these WEQs when the enemies are going to be going for the last hit. So Zed's definitely going to be looking to get these WEQ combos rocking up on the Taliyah. But he's got to be a little bit careful because Taliyah's got a lot of sustain with the double buff. So right now we're slightly slowing down in the trading department, making sure that we're going to be like preserving our HP first. And I really like what he did there. He did a lot of fake movements, dodging out on the Taliyah abilities, because Taliyah has a lot more regeneration and resources at the moment, so we got to be very careful trading. And one thing that I would have done right here if I would be playing Zed is I'm gonna slightly skim through this. So whenever this wave would come in, I would not look too hard, like instantly WEQ. I think that WQ is slightly rushed. In this case, we could have just either started with a normal Q, we could have held the W a little bit longer until the minions would be a little bit lower, or just timed it a little bit better onto a last hit from the Taliyah. Generally though, we're in a really good spot here as Zed, because the double buffs will soon disappear and we'll soon be reaching up to level 6. The main reason why it's such a big counter at level 6 is because of the fact that we have the potential to literally 100-0 a Taliyah if we get the chance to it. May sound absolutely crazy, but I've been on the receiving side of that 100-0 combo quite too often from the Taliyah's perspective. Even so much so that I think it's worth banning Zed whenever you're playing Taliyah, because of how the champs interact. And we're now just going to be waiting for level 6, and then we're going to be looking to get that trading combos going onto the Taliyah, make sure that we slowly chip away their health bar while also staying healthy ourselves. And we really do a nice job anticipating what the enemy is looking for, very nicely tethering out the Taliyah abilities, giving a priority, unfortunately, in this particular situation, but we're kind of forced to, and we're just nicely catching all of the minions right now in the turret. And now we've reached level 6. Now the enemies have used their tempo in a little bit of a turn on mid. We cannot really contest the grubbies right here because we're so incredibly late. But that's still completely fine. It seems like we actually can contest the grubbies, or at least we got like 1 or something like that. I'm not entirely sure how many that we got, but it looks like we had a misfortune move, so we actually can contest the grubbies. And now the lane is going to get very interesting, because now we're at the point where we can get a lot of stuff done onto this Taliyah. And one thing that we see right here is that this is a very clear, good usage of the W. You can use your W in such a way to avoid the Taliyah flick. We land a beautiful double Q onto the Taliyah, which also stacks up our Conqueror. And we are, before the Conqueror expires, into a one-shot onto the Taliyah. And this may seem crazy, right? But this is Zed in a nutshell. We're going to be replaying this one. Double Shuriken, stacking up our Conqueror twice. We got now 6 stacks onto the Conqueror. And then we are into the E, out attack, into another passive out attack. And we also land the Q, which means that it's just an absolute one-shot with the Ignite. Not even close. Zed's damage like that is absolutely through the roof. And this solo kill puts us in a position where Taliyah is basically screwed from that point onward. A very important thing that I want to note right here after the kill, look at how Zed clears the wave. A lot of people would struggle with that. Always start with a Q if you're trying to nuke the wave. And then when the minions are lower, that's when you WEQ. Main reason why you do that is that way you reduce the amount of possibilities that the enemies have to counter and potentially gank you, because your W is not on cooldown and you still have minions to clear. So this was really nice wave clearing prowess by Zeka. Of course, Zed is one of these champs that is incredibly mechanically demanding. So, like, we don't expect perfect mechanical execution from Zeka, especially in fights. This champ's one of the hardest champs to execute in fights. But mainly we're going to be playing up with the mindset here in the lane, where we're going to be waiting for our R to get back up. In the meantime, we're going to take small wins-oriented trades, in which that we're slowly going to be chipping away at the Taliyah's HP bar with WEQ combos. And then we're going to try to get lane control through having these favorable trades in the lane. So we're okay with, if Taliyah wants to like nuke the wave into us, that's completely fine. We can just catch the minions right now. We're not really trying to make any plays happen on the map right now anyway, mainly because of the fact that we have no R. So we're just scouting, we're slightly slowing it down. And only now is when we can look for a potential WEQ combo, getting these trades rocking up, which would put us in a favorable position. In this case, we actually get a little bit more priority together with the Rel. She seems to be helping us right here. Taliyah's wisely respecting. And we can potentially look for WQ combo. Very, very, very nice movement from Zeka. He's tethering out the W range from the Taliyah incredibly well. And really nice WQ combo right there. Only landing 1 Q, so the damage is minimal. But as we saw in the previous all-in, Taliyah is literally in kill threat right now. Like, if she gets ult and she gets hit by the shurikens, she will die. So she's already forced to pot up, even though she's so high HP already. And we land another beautiful, beautiful Q in this case. Slowly chipping away at Taliyah's HP bar. Very nice movement once again. Look how good that Zeka is at dodging out the enemy spells. Preemptively assessing when they're throwing it. And using his very good spacing and kiting to bait it out, dodge it out. Gives him full control on the lane right here. He's taking control of the trades, taking control of the wave state. And a very nice WQ combo puts him in a position where this Taliyah is now under a lot of threat right here. Very nice movement once again. This guy is doing an insane job on not getting hit by the Taliyah abilities. And he just straight up ults him. So he absolutely like whiffs his abilities in this case. And in this case it also doesn't really matter because Kindred is besides him. But now look at if you're playing this in a solo queue environment, right? And you just are like that, R into E, throwing out, missing out all of the abilities, right? All of the Qs went straight to Narnia. And still Taliyah would have died if not for the Kindred ult. That's how insane that Zed's damage is, right? That's how this champion works. And we see that what he does really well is that he eventually gets out right here. If this would be a better Zed player, what Zed can do actually in this case is he can actually walk at Taliyah a little bit longer. I'm not sure if he has W. So yeah, the problem is he has no W right here. And ideally you want to play with a W and where you walk at Taliyah a little bit longer, you then place W outside of tower range. then you R her, and then you can chase her a little bit longer, take it a little bit easier on the Qs, and then just always W out if you want. But since he doesn't have W up right now, he's kind of forced to go for this particular combo. Even though that, in that case, what probably the best way to go about it is go for an R, RE, and then you can always R into W out and not use the W right here because it's not necessary, because you overkill the Taliyah by a long shot already. Like the amount of damage that you do as Zed, you don't need the triple shuriken at all. She's really fucking dead regardless, if not for the Kindred R. So really good attempt. You see that the small win straight right here, they really start hitting the enemies really quite hard. Now, we take a nice little reset, we get the Eclipse, and from this point, right, the lane is especially troublesome for Taliyah because of the fact that Eclipse makes her trades even stronger and takes it absolutely to the next level right here. So, we got a 2 and 1 Zed currently in the building, level 9, which means max points in our Q. Our damage and our skirmishing potential is really high, especially without the Kindred R. So this fight rocking up right here is generally a pretty okay fight. We gotta be careful. Zed's pretty tied to his R ability in the way that he skirmishes. So we cannot go in too deep. We gotta play it quite slow. And that's what he does. He has a very good target selection right here, while also taking it quite easy and not putting himself in a too risky of a position. We try to get a little bit fancy with the WEQ. Nice dodge from Hong Q in this case. And now we have our ult coming back up, which is not something that Corki expected and respected right here. And what we do is we do a nice little fake out onto the Taliyah. Beautiful, beautiful micro into a nice double kill. So this was fantastically fought. And whenever you get yourself in a position like this where you're ahead as Zed, right now game is going to be quite good for him because of the fact that you're going to have permanent side nailing pressure. We see that Taliyah doesn't even have her first item completed. We opted for a Black Cleaver secondary item. I don't know if that's the build. It's hard for me to judge. I'm not going to be judging that one. And we're going to be making our way towards the side lane right now. In the side lane, we're going to be looking to try to do the exact same thing. Look to get some lane control. Try to get the push by our heavy kill threat. Putting that... using our kill threat towards our advantage. And then we're going to try to make some plays with our jungles and look for skirmishes with our ult. That's basically how Zed wants to be playing out the... Zed wants to be playing out this part of the game. So, one of the fun things that Zeka does here in this case is he's getting himself dove by the enemies. And he actually preemptively places out the W, which is very smart. He places the W towards the other side, which means that if Leona engages upon him, he can instantly get out and create space, create distance. So, he's getting his R up very, very, very soon. And we try to combo a little bit. We don't take the flip. I think Zed would have tried to make a montage play out of that one and get himself, try to get himself like a triple kill or something like that. But it's competitive in the end. We're trying to win the title here. So I like that he plays it poised and patient. And in the end, we just now nicely push ourselves this wave. And what we do afterwards is we don't take the risk of getting tempo trapped upon. We know that potential Drake fight might ensue, so we reset and then we instantly open up towards bot/Drake. And if you have full information on the enemy team, what you do is you actually push out that extra bot lane wave. But since we didn't have full information and they might be potentially hiding in the bush, we cannot really do that. So, laning versus Gragas, right, as said, it's completely fine. Like, Gragas cannot beat us, but we cannot really beat him as well. Like, we will win against him, we will get the prio, but we will never kill him. But that's completely fine if we're laning against Gragas, especially guys that bought a little bit of MR. What's going to do is we're going to just look for a little bit of a push and move, especially since the fact that we got Ignite. We got to be quite mobile on the map, and we cannot really just... we cannot just really sit and linger in the side. In this case, he does a very smart move in the sense that he puts himself now versus Taliyah, swaps up the lane assignments. He has a lot more kill threat onto Taliyah, and Taliyah currently is not in a position where she has teleport, so that means that they're now in a position where they cannot just randomly get man advantage TP'd on by the Gragas. But it looks like the enemies are also like aware of this lane assignment swap and they counteract the lane assignment swap. This is something that will happen a lot in pro play, less in solo queue, guys. So if you find yourself in the right lane assignment, try to get the right lane assignment and try to stick in it. And the enemies don't understand how to swap it up unless you're playing like GM Challenger, where they will potentially do it. Still, regardless of it, right, we see that we're constantly shoving. We're not trying to kill this Gragas. We're moving, putting pressure onto the map, getting vision around mid for the team, which is very important. That is so that your team doesn't get engaged upon by mid, but also that you can potentially find a shove and move towards mid. And if your team gets mid prio, you can get prio on the side as well. So it's very important that you help your team secure that mid lane prio by these moves towards mid lane. And we now get ourselves a nice little fight ensuing around the rift. And we're going to be taking a look at the mechanical execution of Zed. So very nice WQ combo onto the... WQ combo onto the CC, and we just wipe the fight with the Vladimir in the back. So let's zoom a little bit out on this one, and let's go a little bit back and a little bit slower. Because there's a lot of stuff that happens in this fight, and it's good to break it down with a little bit of a more detailed perspective. Okay, so the Rel lands an amazing combo onto the Corki. Zed instantly follows up with the MFR, and he instantly ults Corki while the Kindred ult starts. And it looks like he's damaging the Corki right now. And the ZR looks to explode exactly after the Kindred ult disappears. So, Kindred blesses the ground for 4 seconds. And Zed's mark triggers after 3 seconds. So, I'm not sure if the Kindred R blocked the Zed damage. It may have been, it may have not been. I do know that if you damage someone in the Kindred R, it doesn't add up for your extra damage if they cannot take any damage. It's actual damage dealt. So I'm not entirely sure if... I think it looks like the ZR does still land. Maybe it's interaction that if you instantly ult when Kindred ult, it actually does pop out. I'm not the expert in that specific interaction, but overall, I think he fought pretty well. He did fight quite fast, though. I think there's also arguments that you want to fight this a little bit slower and a little bit more controlled. He went in very, very deep, but he probably did that as well to support his team, his Rel in the engage, and potentially buy time for Vladimir. When he R'd back, Gragas was instantly there with the body slam into a death sentence onto the Zed itself. After this fight, though, right, we are now in a massive position in this game. We secured ourselves the Herald. We got a winning Vladimir that is now clearly a win condition. And that means that we're going to now look to play in such a position that we are going to be playing towards our win condition. So a very important thing to do is recognize right now if you want to be side laning or if you want to be grouping. And especially without TP, it's going to be quite a hard thing to do. So in this situation, we recognize that the dragon's spawning in about a minute. And that means that with our information, we now have options. We can either give the dragon and play up on top side right here, get the turrets with the grubbies that we got as well. Definitely a viable option, but we got a very clear win condition onto this Vladimir. We're generally stronger than the enemies at the moment in a 5v5 setting, so there's no reason to not team fight. A lot of Zeds would make the mistake to stay on top and be like, hey, I got top tier 1, my team into the 4v5 fight. Not worth in this situation. If your team is playing bot side, right, when you're even or ahead, you should be playing on that same side as well. Try to make the same play as them. If your team, right, if you want to preemptively give the dragon and actually play into top side, I think that's completely viable. That's completely fair if you want to do that. But you got to make sure that you make one decision and your team is also on the same page when it comes to your decision. So right here, we recognize that we're going to be fighting the dragon. We hit the turret first, and now we recognize that we have to move, so we beeline towards Dragon to be in sync with the team. And you know that this Vladimir, right, is so incredibly strong at the level 13 with the items, and also the enemy team doesn't do well versus the Vladimir. That this is a really good move. One thing that I love that Zeka does in this case is he pushes the mid lane wave, and this puts the enemies in a position where they're just really, really fucked because they have to respond to the mid lane wave, otherwise they're losing an insane amount of money. But in the meantime, we're stacking up the dragon. Bot lane's also being pressured, so this forces the enemies apart. It drags them apart, which means that they got a very favorable position onto this dragon. You see, it's practically impossible for the enemies to contest right here, which means that it's up to a flip. And in the meantime, look what's happening onto bot lane. We're getting a heavy push right here. We're now going to be nicely collecting the mid lane wave afterwards. We're going to be playing mid into bot. And then afterwards, we can just nicely swap up the lane assignments again, because we recognize that after that, the play is going to be up and towards top side. One thing that we have to check out in this regard is that he kind of all-ins the... He all-ins, I think it was Kindred or something like that. Yeah, I think he all-ins Kindred with the R. He recognizes that this R pop will pop after the Kindred mark expires. The only thing that we see right here is this is a very Z-specific interaction with Kindred, is that the Z R like pop only gets hit if deals a lot more damage if you damage the enemy, but Kindred is invulnerable, so she doesn't take any damage. We are going to be opening up towards top side right here. Why? Next neutral is going to be the Artican. Dragon's gone. We want to be playing top side, top tier 1, and the top side vision control. Vladimir's got TP, so we're going to put him on weak side. We're on strong side with Ignite right now. And that means that we are going to be slowly pushing out top lane, and then we're going to try to get some control around mid lane. So right here, we cannot really progress a lot more. We got to be a little bit careful. We try to, of course, like get the turret right here, but you got to be super careful when it comes to going deep because we don't have a lot of vision. The enemies are playing into bot side, recognizing right now that we can easily push out top, and he takes a insta reset. So this is a very interesting insta reset. What is the insta reset right here instead of pushing out this extra wave? Well, he doesn't have proper vision control. We don't have information on the enemies. He's matching the tempo of his jungler right here. And then he's instantly opening it back up. He probably had his item spike. You can also potentially stay in the fog of war and sit back. But he probably had his item spike. That's why he was actually able to play this. Now they sent their bot lane top. Zed takes over mid lane right here. Which ends into a free Artican around the area. And which means that from this point the game is just incredibly easy for, onwards. So really fun performance by Zeka right here. We were due a nice unique champion with the fearless draft method. I recommend maybe banning Zed from now onwards in your solo good games. This is going to massively rise the play rate of this champion. So I hope you guys found this informational, found this enjoyment in this video. Give it a like, give it a subscribe, and I'll see you guys real soon with a new video. Thank you all for watching.